Hello there, World of Tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, World of Tanks Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Tier 10 rebalance changes for the British and Japanese vehicles. Wargaming has already shown us the Americans, the Germans, and the Soviets throughout the past month. It's a little irritating that they're slowly drip-feeding us this content every single week, but there's nothing I can really do about it. So, as I said, today's video, we are going to be breaking into the Tier 10 British and Japanese changes. Without further ado, let's get straight into it, starting off with the Tier 10 British Light, the Vickers. This vehicle is going to be losing 1.15 seconds of reload, which sounds insane, until you realize that it's also losing 50 damage per shot on the standard, 40 on the premium, and 60 on the high explosive. So yeah, it's going to be losing quite a bit of its damage potential. The gun mantlet is also going to be losing about half of its armor. To be fair, I'm fine with that. I don't think light tanks should have good armor. The Vickers Light is essentially a medium tank with a light tank's body. So I'm actually not fully against these changes. There's 700 people disagreeing with them, but the vehicle's not actually losing damage per minute. If we make our way over to the British Light, we can see that currently the vehicle sits at a pretty solid 3012 DPM, and that's with calibrated. After my calculations, the Vickers Light, after losing 1.15 seconds of reload, even with this less damage per shot, is still going to be gaining around 80 damage per minute to sit at 3090. So while this looks like a big nerf, in reality it's actually gaining DPM, which is fine with me. So I don't mind the Vickers actually having this change at all. I think it's going to play more like a light tank and less like a medium that you can trade with other vehicles and get away. Although I don't think the alpha should be reduced that much. I think it should be more like 320, 310, kind of like the T100 LT, but oh well. Let's go over to the FV217B. The vehicle's max speed and engine power are going to be improved. They don't tell us by how much. I would guess that the 215B is going to go 42, as that's what we have seen the IS-4 is going to be receiving, and the IS-7 is going to be nerfed to. So I would guess 42 kilometers per hour. The frontal armor of the commander's cupola, frontal side, and rear armor of the turret, and rear hull armor will be weakened. So that's a bit unfortunate. The strongest part of the FV217B has always been the turret. The hull armor is dog crap. You'll put it with AP through the upper plate with the majority of tier 10s. Even while hull down, it's not good. So now that Wargaming is nerfing the hatch and a lot of the turret, we're going to have to see by how much, but hopefully it's not a substantial amount, because it's really going to take away from one of the only things the FV217B has going for it when it comes to the armor. A lot of skilled players are going to be greatly affected by this if it does nerf it by quite a bit. So that's a bit unfortunate, especially because nothing else is really getting changed on the vehicle. So yeah, you can see 726 people disagree with that, 62 agree, and I'm one of those people that disagree. The FV217 is getting some weird changes. Essentially, the normal gun is getting better than the Hesh gun, or at least that's what I see in my eyes. So we can see the L7A1 Royal Ordnance, the heat gun, reload time is going to be decreased by about 0.4 seconds. As well, the AP ammo is being turned back into APCR. I'm not really sure why Wargaming just keeps swapping ammo types right, left, and centered. I mean, the Badger's going to be getting heat, you're going to see in a moment. The 263 is getting heat, both vehicles that have never had heat, neither in Blitz or PC forever. So it doesn't make sense why they're just changing random ammo types, and that's the same thing for the 4202. Wargaming originally had the FV4202 with APCR, then decided, okay, we're going to change all the standard shells on mediums to AP, and then they've decided to go back on this. I don't understand what Wargaming's doing half the time here. I don't get what they think's going to happen when they change a single shell type, but whatever. It's a little weird. Not much I can do about that. The gun is going to be getting quite a bit of a DPM buff, bringing the DPM of the Royal Ordnance from 3050 to 3235. That's a pretty substantial DPM buff, almost 200. That's actually going to make the non-Hesh firing gun incredibly good, especially when we take a look at the Hesh gun getting actually a pretty big nerf in my opinion. The Hesh gun is getting a reduced aiming time of 0.2 seconds. Okay, not much of a change there. The single shot damage of the regular HE is being increased by 40. Right now it is 440, so it's going going to be a pretty massive 480 next update. The problem is that the reload time gets extended by 0.38 seconds, so you're losing DPM on one gun and gaining DPM on the other. We can take a look at this. As I said, 3050 DPM base on the 4202, so if we add on 0.38 seconds, next update, the 4202 is going to have 2892 DPM. So yeah, a bit unfortunate. It's going to be losing a substantial amount of DPM on the Hesh gun and gaining a substantial amount on the non-Hesh gun, about a 400 damage per minute difference. So if you want my opinion, as much as it's weird to say this, I actually think the Royal Ordnance gun might be a better choice. I'll have to try both out, and I really like Hesh, but at this point, it's such a DPM difference that I don't even know if it's going to be worth it to fire the Hesh at that point. So yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. Shell velocity comes to be slower, and the armor penetration of regular HE is reduced to 65 mils. So even though the regular HE is getting a buff, it's actually just getting a massive nerf, and I'd never ever suggest to use it. Next up, we have the FV217 183, a vehicle that a lot of people probably want to see the changes to, and honestly, not much is happening. It is getting a slight buff, but also a slight nerf. For example, the upper plate is getting buffed, and the turret armor is getting buffed, which we'll have to see by how much. It says slightly, but when it comes to wargaming, slightly could mean a lot. The lower plate is being weakened, okay, whatever. Aiming time is reduced by 0.8 seconds. Now that is pretty massive, I'm not gonna lie. However, the stabilization and gun dispersion are getting worse, so that's fine with me. If the tank has a better aiming time, but its base dispersion is trash, that's fine. I hope it's like 0.4 dispersion, so we'll have to see. Power to weight ratio will improve. Max speed will get faster by 4. Okay, who cares? It'll go like 40 kilometers per hour. Reverse speed slows down by 2. That's also good. I don't want it to reverse faster. I think it should get punished if it tries to frontline and makes a mistake. Regular HE shell penetration is scaled down to 80 mils. That's quite a massive nerf. But to be fair, that's just regular HE, so that's not the Hesh. Nobody really shoots that to begin with. This is where I'm quite happy when it comes to the FV217 183 changes, because the vehicle is getting a Hesh Alpha nerf. I am so happy. I am very glad. The standard shot damage is being increased by 20, and that is a buff. It's actually quite a nice buff too. It's going to go from 930 to 950, but it's not that massive because the 183 already has that much alpha. It's barely an increase in the actual damage you're going to be dealing. What is going to be a big change is the crappy Hesh, which has 80 mils a pen, is going to be getting a 90 damage buff. That's pretty big. That means you're going to have 1400 damage per shot on the crappy HE. So that's going to be pretty nasty. However, while that's gaining 90 damage per shot, the base Hesh, which has all the pen, is going to be losing 90 damage per shot, going from 1300 to 1210. That is a pretty substantial nerf, and it means that a lot of your Hesh shells are not going to be rolling nearly as much. Shell velocity is also getting reduced, making the tank worse for hitting opponents on the move, but it is getting more ammo, which I guess is quite nice, because I can't tell you how many times I've ran out of AP ammo in the 183. I am actually quite happy about these changes, because I hate the 183. I hate that the fact it can ruin people's games by one misplay, so yeah, that's fine with me. Next up, we arrive at the Chieftain Mk, which, I'll be real, nothing really changes. I am so disappointed in wargaming. I was praying the Chieftain was going to get a turret armor buff, or maybe a top speed buff to 45, I don't know. I was just hoping that something would be done to the turret armor, and unfortunately, it gets AP and reactive armor. Who cares? Reactive on the Chieftain isn't going to mean anything because it has no armor. It's still going to get absolutely butchered by autoloaders and things like that, and AP is nice, don't get me wrong. It doesn't lose shell velocity or anything like that, so it'll be really nice. It is basically getting a flat buff here, but at the same time, I just don't care. I really wanted to see the turret armor buff, so I'm quite disappointed. Moving on, we have the FV217 Badger, which is getting buffs and nerfs. I think overall, I'm happy with the changes because it's not getting nerfed on its traverse speed or armor. So, the Badger shell type is changed to AP heat and HE, so it's just getting heat now, which I think is a little stupid because I think all the British tanks have always had basically APCR as premium, so I think it's really stupid that this tank is getting heat now. It's kind of just a nerf, especially because it's not getting a pen buff, but to be fair, the Badger has so much premium pen that it's not much of a worry, and the Badger still has really good standard pen of like 290, so I don't think it's going to affect the tank all too much. The dispersion gets increased, doesn't say by how much, so that could be a big nerf. I guess we'll have to find out. Shell velocity gets slower, again, doesn't say by how much. but it does get sandbagged. So if you end up running hit points on the Badger, it's going to go from 2,120 to 2,250. So that is a pretty big buff there. That means that you're almost as healthy as the lower echelon of heavy tanks like the Chieftain Mk at 2,438. So not all too bad. Armor penetration of the base shell is trimmed by 5. Who cares? And the HE is getting increased by 45 mils. And that right there is the biggie for the Badger. The vehicle's getting Hesh. Oh my god. You make a misplay, the Badger is going to ruin your day for it now. The vehicle is going to sit at 110 HE penetration. And with having over 4,500 DPM shooting HE, holy crap, you're not going to want to mess with the Badger in a mobile tank. That was really one of the only downsides of the Badger, was the fact that mobile tanks could possibly get to its rear, but now that you have Hesh, you can just absolutely annihilate them. So I am very excited for the Badger next update, I'll be real. Moving on, after the Badger, we have the 4005. Hull traverse is enhanced noticeably. Who cares? Doesn't really matter. The reverse speed is set down by 10. Okay, that is going to affect the tank a lot. It's going to make it not nearly as effective when it comes to reversing. HP is reduced by 50. Who cares? And reticle calibration is removed. That is really good news, because I don't think it should have reticle calibration. It's an auto-loading tank destroyer that can nuke people from across the map. Alright, that's fine with me when it comes to the 4005. Super Conqueror armor penetration will be decreased by 7mm on the standard, 6 on the premium, and what? Wow, 50 mils on the HE. That is bullcrap. I completely disagree with that, Wargaming, and I think that's one of the dumbest changes I've read so far. The Super Conq should have Hesh. It's basically a Tortoise FV217 Conqueror gun. Why are you taking away the Hesh? That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Who at Wargaming said, you know what, guys, let's remove the Hesh on the Super Conqueror. Let's give it to the Tortoise, and let's give it to the Badger, the only vehicles in the game that didn't have Hesh. Like, what? Okay, I'm so mad at Wargaming there, but oh well. Reload time will be reduced by 0.3 seconds, so it is getting a buff in my opinion. Like, sure, it's losing the HE, but it is actually gaining DPM overall and nothing else is being changed. So the Super Conqueror is going to have 2,750 DPM next update, which is pretty nasty, especially when you realize that's with calibrated shells. With rammer, it's going to be upwards of like almost 2,900, 3,000. That's actually going to be quite substantial. So it's not that it's getting nerfed, but it is really irritating, especially because the tank's in quite a good spot right now. Up next, we have the STB, and, yeah, Wargaming just doesn't know how to balance this game. The STB sounds like it's getting nerfed until you look at the actual changes being made. First of all, the STB is getting AP on the premium shell. That's just a massive buff already. That's crazy, because AP has shell normalization, and it's not losing pen. So already, it's going to be one of the highest penning mediums in the game. Add that into the fact it's losing a second on the reload. That's also insane. Sure, it's losing damage per shot by 20, but you can imagine how losing a second on your reload, where only losing 20 damage per shot, is not a substantial nerf. The STB-1 is going from 3,000 DPM to 3,300 DPM. That is almost a 300 DPM buff. What the heck? So not only is the vehicle getting 3,300 DPM, but while the standard ammo is losing 20 damage per shot, the premium is gaining 20 damage per shot, which means that you're going to have 320 damage per shot on the premium and 330 on the standard. What the frick? You are basically going to have the same DPM shooting premium shells as you are AP on the STB-1. I have nothing to say. Wargaming is delusional, and the fact that they think this is a smart change shows just how trash they are at balancing this game. How do they think this is a good idea? Seriously, how do they think this is a good idea? I don't understand. It's gonna have 3,250 DPM shooting premium shells. And it has AP premium. Okay. Good job, Wargaming. The STB-1 is already the #1 performing medium in the game, and it's the #1 performing tank for skilled players. And now they're making it even better. I swear, they're just morons. Sorry, Wargaming, you're just morons. Type 71, the premium shell type is being assigned to AP. Okay, so again, a flat premium pen buff. The average damage per shot expands by 20, 20, and 15. and its reload gets 0.38 seconds longer, while the aiming time doesn't change. I mean, 0.1 seconds. Why they even change it at that point? Okay. So essentially, the Type 71 is getting a flat buff in not only Alpha, because the DPM's also getting better. Type 71 basically has no DPM difference, but the fact that it's getting premium AP is just a flat buff. So yeah, that's pretty substantial. The final changes we have are for the Hori Type 3. The hit points are being scaled up to 1900 hit points, so it's going from 1800 to 1900. Okay. Frontal armor and side armor are increased. Why? Just why? The Hori has already some of the most annoying frontal armor to shoot at, and now you're buffing it again? Bro. Terrain crossing capacity improves, but the hull traverse speed gets worse. So, does that mean it's staying the same because the terrain crossing capacity is getting better? I don't know. We'll have to see. View range shrinks by 10 meters, and the aiming time becomes 0.2 seconds longer. Gun dispersion is increased. So, essentially, the tank's becoming less accurate, but getting more armor. We'll have to see how much by the accuracy it's changed. I'm not a huge fan of the Hori getting more armor, though. That thing is so incredibly troll already. But there you have it, ladies and gents. These are the changes. Biggest ones I'm excited for. I'm excited for the Badger getting a pretty substantial HE buff. That's going to be massive. I'm not excited for the STB. I am excited for the Type's premium shells, though. Not much else, to be honest. There's not many changes here that I think are crazy. I think a lot of the British tanks were very well balanced, especially the 2 and 5B FV217 Vickers Light. Yeah, I don't know. I think that they could have just left a lot of the British tanks the way they currently are, and it would have been fine. But let me know in the comments down below what you think. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.